My test. So, very good evening, students. Welcome to another session of 2026 A-Level Rapid Revision. So, yes, we are very much near to our exam. Okay, I think from today onwards, you might get around 45 to 40 days for the accounting exam. I think for the economics, just mostly less than 30 days. Okay, so yes. So I think in the last class we have discussed about the pay sheet and all stuff. Okay, so how to do the pay sheets and the ledger accounts for the pay sheets and the double entries, all stuffs have been discussed in the last class in the previous session. Okay, so today we are going to move to a very important, I would say, important session, but no, important session as well as which is a compulsory question in your A-level exam, okay, which is overhead analysis sheet. Okay, so yes, it's not a very hard thing. Okay, if you know the core concept of the overhead analysis sheet, you can tackle this question. Okay, very much simple. So let's begin. Okay, go to the page number 17 in the tude 14.6 production overhead cost. 14.6 production overhead cost. Actually, do you guys know what is meant by this overhead cost? Okay, so I'll start with the beginning first. Okay, so there's a production cost, right? So the cost can be categorized into two elements. First one is production cost. Second one is non-production cost. Okay, production cost and non-production cost. Production cost can be categorized further: prime cost and overhead cost. Okay, so for an example, I would say production, for the non-production cost, we can categorize this as a administration cost, distribution cost, okay, finance, and other. These things are known as non-production costs. So these costs do not involve in the production process. Okay, so the auditor's salary, director's salary, okay, the building rent, office equipment depreciation, those stuff, such as those stuff, the discounts received, discounts paid, and the interest rates and the inventory written off, those stuff, those expenses do not interfere with the production process. Okay, so that's why we call it as non-production cost. Coming into the production cost, prime and overhead cost. Prime cost means per unit you can identify the cost. Per unit you can identify the cost. For an example, I can say, okay, in order to build a furniture, a table, in order to build a table, okay, you can decide how much of wood is needed, right? In order to produce a table, okay, in order to produce a furniture or a table, you can decide how much of wood is needed. But But in order to produce a one table, you can't decide how much of electricity is spawned, right? The electricity bill. In order to produce one table, you can't decide how much of electricity is needed. Okay, so that's why, so that's the situation where this overhead analysis comes. Okay, so in the prime cost we can easily identify, okay, per unit these are the cost went. But in the overhead we cannot decide, right? So the overhead analysis sheet comes, okay, we categorize the cost into a logical basis, okay, and we divide that overhead cost in a very much appropriate absorption. That's what I can say. Appropriate absorption, the simple term. Appropriate absorption. Okay. So I know you might get confused by using these tricky terms. Okay. But just be with me. Be with me. When I do the examples and the question stuff, you will get a better understanding what is these key terms. Okay. So how this has been splitted and collected and contributed to the per unit. Okay. So this is the actual production cost. Okay. So actually, that's what I explained in the way. If we go to the page number 17, classification of overheads. Yes, the overheads are classified here. Supervisor salary, machinery insurance, machine depreciation, factory rent and building factory depreciation, and the factory insurance. Those costs cannot be categorized into a single particular unit by the looks of it. Okay, so that's why we call it as overheads. So non-production, these are the non-production overheads. So the process of distribution of the overheads, yes, there is a process. Okay, the stage one, the collection, allocation, appropriation, and absorption. There are 4 steps. You don't have to worry about what is meant by the 4 steps. Okay, I will show you actually what is meant by these 4 steps. Okay, second one, basis of appropriation. Yes, the basis of appropriation is very much needed. Okay, the building rent, electricity, indirect wages, machine depreciation expenses. Yeah. There are some basis of appropriation. Okay, the overhead absorption rates are also there. But please highlight in the page number 19, the top of the page number 19, you can get the appropriation basis of two direct labor hours and machine hours. Okay, so that will be the highlighted star pointed appropriation basis, because the repeatedly in the exam they are testing like this appropriation basis. Okay, so yes, by like reading the question, by just reading the question you won't understand, I know. Okay, even if I am a fresh student, okay, I don't understand this relevant stuff, but I'll do a question, you will get a better understanding on this. Okay, yes. Okay, go to the page number 19. There is a worked example of overhead analysis sheet. Yes, we'll do that question. Worked example of overhead analysis sheet. Worked example of overhead analysis sheet. This will be the overhead analysis sheet. The cost Remember, this overhead analysis sheet is made to collect the all overhead cost and appropriate into specific unit in a very logical absorption basis. Okay, so that will be the main idea of this overhead analysis sheet. Okay, so yes, the cost and the basis and total. Okay, the department will be A, B, and S. Yes. Okay. So we'll read the question. Kure Furniture Shop has two production departments and one service department. Okay. Two production department and one service department. So you might ask, sir, what is this production department and service department? What is this? Okay. So let's think in the Kure company, okay, there are two production department and one service department. A, B, and S. Actually, what is this first production department? This first production department, in assumption, I can say, for an example, this production department only cut the trees by using a hammer. This production department only cut the trees. Okay, cutting the trees into a perfect shape in order to make a furniture. Cutting the trees. Production department number one. Sorry, production department A. This production department merging and polishing the furniture. Okay, merging. So this is a making department. Polishing the furniture, which means merge and sandpaper the furnitures and painting. Those stuff will be happening in under the production department B. So actually, what is meant by this service department? So in the production, this is a production, right? So how the service is involved in the production? You would ask. So actually, how the service is involved in this production? Simply because there's a labor, right? Always there's a labor involved in this production process. The labor needs to eat. Okay, the labor needs to go to the washroom. There is a supervisor. There will be a security. Those salaries and maintenance costs are categorized under the service departments. The canteens, the factory canteen, okay, the factory meals, the service department, the supervisor, the security, okay. So those people are known as in the service department staff. Okay, so very much simple. So this production process, the production company, this Kure production company have three departments: production department A, production department B, and service department S. Okay, let's start. And the expenses are given below: indirect wages, indirect materials, okay, and cost of the machine, area, number of employees, and direct labor hours. You don't have to worry. You don't have to worry. Remember, if you have a good general knowledge and good logical mind, you can tackle this question. Very easy. I know in the management accounting staff do not adhere with the accounting standards. So you don't have to follow the accounting standards. You have a general knowledge and a good logical manner. This will be easy. Okay, so first is indirect wages. The expenses have been given straight away, right? So indirect wages, it's straight away given. Okay, see, for the production A, this is 360,000, this is 120,000, and service department 20,000. Altogether, see, 480, 500 is the total. So since it is directly given in the question, The basis will be direct. Direct. Okay. Next one, indirect materials. Indirect materials. 30, 20, 10. It's given. Altogether, 60,000. It's also directly given. It is also directly given. Third one, direct materials. Direct materials. 480, 180, 30. 480, 180, 30, which is equals to 480, 180, 30, 690, which is also directly given. Okay. So after that, the cost of the machine given. Cost of the machine is not an expense, right? It's not an expense. Area, number of employees, and direct labor hours. So why these stuffs are there? Okay, we'll see. So before moving to that, go to the page number 7. There are a process of distribution of overweights. Okay, so now I come again to the theoretical part. Now I'll come that later. Okay, so you can understand the process cleanly. Okay, so yes. Okay, so yes, up to now, indirect wages, indirect materials, direct materials are given. All things are done. After that, the cost of the machine, area, and the number of employees, direct labor was given. So actually, why this has been given? Why? Okay, we'll read the question. Continue. Other overheads. Yes, there are some other overheads are given under the table. See, machine depreciation 400,000, employee expenses 200,000, rent 300,000. Okay, so first one is machine depreciation. How much is the machine depreciation? Machine depreciation is 400,000. Sorry, its total value is given there 400,000. Okay. And employee expenses. Employee expenses. Employee expenses 200,000. Okay. And rent 300,000. The rent is 300,000. Okay. Now, what your problem is? These three expenses are given. So how you are going to appropriate between these three departments? That will be your question. See, the total numbers are given. Previously, in the direct basis, they actually given what will be the cost of department A, what will be the cost of department B, what will be the cost of department S. Okay, no worries on that. But these three expenses, for these three expenses, they didn't give any split off. Okay, so if they didn't give any split off, what we have to do is we have to appropriate those expenses in a proper appropriation basis. In a proper appropriation basis. See, so that appropriation base is also given in the question. See, in the table, the cost of the machine there, the area there, and the number of employees there, direct labor hours there. So, in a logical manner, you can tell this machine depreciation can be appropriated based on cost of the machine. Simple, right? That will be the Logical appropriation, cost of the machine. So cost of the machine is it is splitted below 125, 70 and 5. 125,000, 70,000 and 5,000. Okay, yes. So this will be your appropriation basis. Appropriation basis. So you have to summarize it, right? So for now, here I will do the thing. 120,000 for the production A. Okay. So for the production B, so here we'll do the here now. Production A 120,000. For the production B, that will be 70,000. Okay. For the production C, that will be 5,000. Okay. So this will be the appropriation basis. Okay. It's given in the question. But what you can do is you can summarize that, which means bring down the value for this appropriation basis. How you can do that? There are three numbers. Find a common number which can be divided these three numbers. Find a common number which can be divided by these three. Okay. So by looking at I can come to a conclusion. These three numbers can be divided by 5,000. So divide the 5,000 by 5,000, which means 1. Divide the 70,000 by 5,000. Let's see what will be the number. 14. Divide 120,000 by 5,000. Yes. 24. So this will be the appropriation basis. Okay. 124. Yes. This will be the appropriation basis. (24 into 14 into 1). Okay. Yes. For the A, it's not 120,000, it's 125,000. That's why I thought why it's getting a decimal number. Sorry for my mistake. It's 125,000, which is 25. Okay. 25 into 14 into 1. So that will be your appropriation basis. So now you have to appropriate this 400 with this basis, right? So 400,000 divided by 25, 14, 1, which is equals to 40. 25 plus 14 plus 1, which is equals to 40. So one portion will be 10,000. 10,000 is the one portion. Okay. So 10,000 multiplied by 25, 250,000. 10,000 multiplied by 14, 140,000. 10,000 multiplied by 1, 10,000. See, how did I get the appropriation basis? Okay. 250, 140, 10, altogether 400, which is equals to this number. This is how you can get the appropriation basis. Okay. Next, employee expenses. Okay, so employee expenses. What will be the correct appropriation basis? Logical appropriation basis, number of employees. So the number of employees will be 60, 30, 10. So you can summarize it as 3 to 6 to 3 to 1. Okay, 6 to 3 to 1. So total number will be 10. Okay, 10 divided by 200 divided by 10, which is 200,000 divided by 10, which means one portion will be 20,000. Okay, so that will be 120,000, 60,000 and 20,000. Okay, rent. So rent can be appropriate based on the area. Area is given 3,000, 1,500, 500. Okay, so 3,000, 3,000, 1,500 and 500. So you can divide both by these three numbers by 500. Okay, so simple, which means 6 into 3 into 1. Again 6 into 3 into 1. Okay, so 300 divided by 10. So one portion is equals to 30,000. So 180,000. Okay, 90,000 and 30,000. Okay, so this will be the appropriation for the overhead expenses. Okay, so that will be the overhead expenses. Yes. So after this, what we can do is we can sum it up all the numbers. Okay, so let's sum it up. 20,000 plus 10,000 plus 30,000 plus 10,000 plus 120,000 will be for the service sector. 20, 20, 180, 140, 60 plus 90 will be 610,000. Okay, 360 plus 30 plus 480 plus 250, 120 plus 180, 1,400 and okay. So this thing up to this thing which is known as primary distribution. I think yes, it's visible. Primary distribution, which means we are distributing the overhead expenses at very initial stage. Primary distribution. Okay. So yes, after the primary distribution ends, what we have to do is we have to do the secondary distribution. So what is meant by this secondary distribution? Actually, the secondary distribution means distributing the service department overheads, into production departments. Okay, so that will be the secondary distribution. So we'll say that service department. Okay. So in secondary distribution in the question it says service department cost 1 into 1 for A and B. So the basis is given. Okay. Given 1 into 1 is the appropriation basis. So what we have to do now is we have to reduce this 120,000 from here and split into 1, which means 60,000 for this and 60,000 for this. Okay, so after that we have to sum it up again. 0, 670,000 and 1,540,000. Okay, So that will be the total numbers. These numbers won't change, which means this plus this, which is equals to this. Okay. So that will be the overhead analysis. So after this overhead analysis done, what we have to do is we have to absorb these overheads. We have to absorb these overheads. So the absorption base is also given. Overhead absorption rates. Look at the step number 3. Overhead absorption rate is direct labor hours. Okay. Okay. So we'll calculate the absorption for each department. Okay. So there are two departments which will have a overheads. So we have to absorb this overheads. We have to absorb this overheads. So let's start with production A. Production A, overhead absorption. Production A, overhead absorption rate. Okay, so that will be total, no, not the total. We'll say production A cost divided by production A direct labor hours. Okay, because in the question they say we have to absorb the overheads based on the direct labor hours. So production expenses will be 1,540,000. 1,540,000. Direct labor hours for the production A is given. Okay, direct labor hours for the production A is given, which is 3,700, which is 3,700. Okay, you can see in the table, in the table is there, in the table it's there. See, direct labor hours is given 3,700. Okay, so if you divide this by this, okay, you will get the number of 416.21 per hour. Per hour. Okay. Likewise, we have to do for the production department B. Overhead absorption rate. Okay. So production B cost divided by direct labor hours. For the production B, we have 670,000 divided by the direct labor hours will be 3,350. Okay, so the answer will be 200. per hour. 200 per hour. So that will be our overhead absorption rates. Okay. After calculating the overhead absorption rate, what we have to do is, I will erase this. What we have to do is, after calculating the overhead absorption rate, what we have to do is, we have to calculate the total production cost per unit. Okay. So step 4, the production cost is given. Okay. So in the page number 20, you can see the question: order 1000 chairs. Okay. Direct material cost 700 per unit, direct labor 1000 per unit, other direct cost 100 per unit is given. Department A, they spend 8 labor hours, 8 direct labor hours for the department A. Department B, they spend 6 labor hours. So we'll calculate the production cost per unit. Okay. Cost per unit. Okay. First one, direct material is given. Direct material is given 700 and direct labor is given 1000. Okay. Other direct cost is given 100. Altogether, 1800 will be our prime cost. Let's look at the overheads. For the production A, they spend 8 hours. So 8 multiplied by 416.21, and for the production B, they spend 6 hours. 6 divided by 200. Okay. 6 divided by 200, 1200. 8 multiplied by 416.21, which is equals to 3329.68. Altogether, 4529.68. I will have the prime cost here, 1800. Okay. So cost per unit will be 6329.68. This is how you can calculate the total cost per unit. Per unit, right? Per unit. Okay. So now I'll come with the theory. Okay. So if you go to the page number 17, you can see the process of distributing the overheads. This thing. See, the process of distributing the overheads. There are 4 processes. First process is collection. Second process, allocation. Third process, appropriation. Fourth process, absorption. So these are the 4 processes that will be included in the overhead distribution process. So collecting the expenses. So this will be the collecting the expenses. Okay. So collecting the expenses means collecting the expenses for the direct wages, materials, indirect materials, depreciation expenses, rent. So we are collecting the expenses. This is collection part. allocation. So we allocate into A, B, and C, A, B, and C, A, B, and C for these three. For these three, we have allocated. Okay. First, we have collected and we have allocated for these three. So we can't allocate for these three expenses. For these three expenses, we can't allocate directly. So that's why we appropriate. So for these three expenses, we got a appropriation. Okay. After that, this will be the absorption. Okay. This is appropriation. This is allocation, and this will be the collection. Okay. I hope you guys understood this concept very clearly. Okay. So as I said earlier, for the prime cost, for the prime expenses, we can directly allocate per unit this much of labor went, this much of material went, this much of expenses went here. But for the indirect, for the overhead expenses, we cannot allocate directly. So that's why we prepare an overhead analysis sheet and we allocate the expenses, and based on the absorption rate, we proportionate how much of overheads went for the particular one unit. Okay, so that will be the calculation. So which is a very simple calculation. Okay, and this will be the basics for the overhead absorption sheet. Okay, so yes, I will give you some time. I will give you some time. After that, I think we can go for the 2024 paper. Okay, so this is from my perspective, this is not a very hard question. Very simple and very understandable question. Okay, so what you need is a good logical mind. Yes, good logical mind is very much enough. If you have a good logical mind, you can easily do this question. Okay, so just note it down and we'll do the 2024 A level overhead absorption question. Okay, yes. Okay, students, so we'll start with 2022 paper. Okay, 2022. 2022 A-level paper. Okay, so just for the 2 to 3 minutes, just read the question. Until that, I will draw the overhead analysis sheet. Okay, so we'll start with the question. Okay, we'll start with the question. Question number 2, sub question B. Okay, 2024 A-level. Question number 2, sub question B. Okay, so a manufacturing company produces two products, namely X and Y. Okay, the company uses two production centers, namely assembly and finishing, and one service center, stores. Okay, to produce these products, these cost centers are allocated in the same premises. Okay, the budgeted production overheads for the next financial year is given below. Okay, assembly overheads, yes, assembly or allocated overheads, assembly, finishing, and stores is given. Okay, other overheads, factory rent, electricity, depreciation, and maintenance cost of the system is given. Additional information, the information relevant to the cost centers, kilowatt hours, machinery, flow area, number of reports generated through the information system also given there. Okay, the service store is provided to assembly and the finishing cost center in the ratio of 3 to 2 respectively. The overheads of assembly and the finishing cost center are absorbed based on the machine hours and the labor hours respectively. The budgeted machine hours and the budgeted machine hours of the assembly cost center are 40,000, and budgeted labor hours for the finishing cost center is 20,000. And the following information is relayed. So okay, after that we can do the question. The required is the overhead analysis sheet showing clearly the basis of appropriation and including reappropriation of the overheads. Okay. The overheads appropriation rate of each product cost center. And third, the following products of X and Y. Okay. The cost of the production per unit and selling price per unit. We'll do one by one. First, what we have to do is we have to distribute the overheads primarily. We have to do the primary distribution. So we'll do that first. Cost basis total. There are three: assembly, finishing, stores. Okay. Yes. We'll do the question. See, in the question, allocated overheads. First, allocated overheads are given. So, since the first overheads are given directly, so we'll write that. Allocated overheads basis is direct. Is directly given, right? For the assembly, which is 970, we have to put 3 zeros. For finishing, 760. Here, stores 40. Altogether 1730. Okay. Sorry, it's not 970, it's 930. Okay. Other overheads. First one, factory rent. The total is given 100. Electricity 300. Depreciation 450. Maintenance cost of information system is 420. What will be the appropriation for the rent flow area? Okay. The ratio is 1500 to 750 to 250, which means you can divide the 1500 and the 750 and the 250 by the 250. So you can go as 6 into 3 into 1. Okay. 6 into 3 into 1. So 60, 30, 10. Okay. Electricity, for the electricity is kilowatt. Okay. So you can divide both as 2000. So 1 into 4 into 5, that will be the ratio. 5 into 4 into 1 for the electricity. 150, 120 and 30. Okay. So after that, machine depreciation, which means cost of the machine is given there. Okay, machinery cost. That will be the appropriation basis. 80 into 40. Yes. So 8 into 40 means 1 and 2. Okay. So 300 and 150. Machine maintenance cost of the information system is 420. So number of reports generated through the information system is the proper appropriation basis. Okay. So that will be 15 to 115 to 10. So both 50, 150, 10. So both three can be divided by 10. So yes, 1 into 15 into 5. Okay. So yes, that will be 100, 300 and 20. Okay. So this will be our primary distribution. After the primary distribution, we have to sum it up. Okay. 100. This will be 1360. This will be 1540 and 3000. Okay. So after that, what we have to do is secondary distribution. Secondary distribution is given, the basis is given, which is 3 into 2, which means we have to reduce the 100 here, and three portion will go to here, which means 60 goes to here, 40 goes to here. This will be our secondary distribution. So 0, 1400, 1600. Okay. So the primary distribution and the secondary distribution is also done. Let's find out the overhead absorption rate next. Okay. The overhead absorption rate. Okay. In the question they say the overheads of assembly and the finishing cost centers are absorbed into the products based on the machine hours and the labor hours. Machine hours and the labor hours. So for the assembly, they use cost divided by which basis? Machine hours. Okay. For the finishing, they divide this cost by labor hours. Yes, labor hours. It's given, simple, it's given. Okay. So the budgeted machine hours of the assembly cost center is 40,000. Yes, 40,000 since the machine hours is also given. Okay. And budgeted labor hours for the finishing cost center is 20,000. Okay. Now let's divide. So after dividing, you can get 40 rupees per hour. ₹70 per hour. Yes, ₹70 per hour. So that will be the overhead absorption rate. So for the question number 1, it's done. Question number 1, it's done. Question number 2, it's done. Overhead absorption rate is calculated. Let's do the question number 3. Okay. The following for the product X and Y. Total cost of production per unit. Okay, they are asking the cost of production and the selling price per unit. Okay. So let's calculate the cost of production. I think in the previous section we have discussed how to calculate the cost of the production. So very simple, the cost of the production per unit. That will be the heading. Cost of production per unit. So how to calculate the cost of the production? Go to the adjustment number 4, additional information number 4, direct materials, direct labors, all the details are given below. So what we have to do is simple, add them and summarize it. That's it. Okay. So since they are asking per unit, right? So you have to remember they are asking per unit. Okay. So direct material is given, direct material cost per unit. There is products X and product Y. Okay. Direct material is given 310 and 340. Okay. And the direct wages is given 150 and 200. Okay. Altogether, we can come as prime cost. 460 and 540. Okay, so that will be the prime cost. After that, we'll calculate the overheads. Okay, how to calculate the overheads? Machine hours is given. Okay, so this is a product, right? This is a product, right? So each product consists of machine hours and labor hours. Don't confuse, right? Each product consists the machine hours and the labor hours. Okay, so for the machine hours, for the product X spends 5 hours and product Y spends 2 hours. Okay, and product X spends 2 labor hours and product Y spends 4 labor hours. Okay. Okay. So for the product X, 5 labor hours is used, 5 machine hours is used. Per hour we spend 40 rupees, since this is the machine hour per rate. This is the machine hour per rate. Okay. So 40. Labor hours 70 spent. Likewise 40 and 70. Okay. After that the numbers will be 200 total machine hours, 140 total labor hours. Okay. 80 here, 280. Okay. So we'll calculate 460 plus 800 will be our cost per unit here, and 540 plus 80 plus 280, 900 will be our cost per unit. Okay, very simple. Very simple. Okay, cost per unit is calculated for each product. After that, what we have to do? We have to calculate the selling price per unit. Okay, that will be the very interesting thing. Okay, so one is done. What we have to do is to selling price per unit. Okay, how to calculate the selling price? Okay, so this is cost. Okay, in the businesses, we actually don't sell for the cost. In the cost, we have to include the profit, right? For the cost, we have to include the profit. After including the profit only, we sell. Okay, so now we have to calculate the selling price. Remember, cost and the selling price won't be same. Okay, so the selling price always equals cost plus profit. Cost plus profit. Okay, so keep that idea, and we'll do the question. Okay, the selling prices for the, go to the adjustment number 5, the additional information number 5. The selling prices for the products are determined as follows. For the product X, by keeping 20% of profit for the cost per unit. Okay. For the product Y, by keeping 10% of the margin for the selling price per unit. Okay. Cost per unit and the selling price per unit. Okay. Now actually there are two concepts. First concept is known as mark up. Mark up. Second concept is known as margin. Okay. There are two selling price calculation concepts. First one is markup. Second one is margin. Okay. This markup is always calculated like this. Imagine this is the formula, right? Cost plus profit, which is equals to selling price. Okay. So this is also cost plus profit is always equals to selling price. Okay. In the situation markup, in the situation of markup, cost is always 100%. Remember, cost is always 100%. But in the situation of margin, selling price is always 100%. Selling price is always 100%. Okay. In the markup, cost is 100%. In the margin, selling price is 100%. Okay. Keep that idea. Keep that idea. Now we'll go to the question. I'm reading again the additional information number 5. Selling prices of the products are determined as follows. Product X, for the product X, keeping 20% profit on the production cost per unit. 20% profit on the production cost. So they are keeping 20% of the profit on where? On the cost. So cost plus 20% profit, which is equals to selling price 120%. Okay. For the product Y, by keeping 10% of margin, highlight the word margin, 10% on margin on selling price per unit. So they are keeping 10% out of this 100%. So the profit is 10% here, cost is 90% here. See, 100 plus 20 equals 120, 10 plus 100, which is equals to 100. Formula is correct. Okay, the calculation is correct, the formula is correct. Okay, so now what we have to do is, now what we have to calculate the selling price. So how to calculate the selling price here? Next step. What we know, the cost. We know the cost of each product. So the cost is known, okay, 100% is the cost. Cost we known for the product X is 800. Okay, the product X is using the markup, right? The cost is known, cost is 100%, the cost is 800. Okay, selling price is what we know, what we need. Selling price is what we need. The selling price is 120%. See, the selling price is 120%. That's what we need. Selling price is 120%, so that's what we need. Cost is 100%. We already calculate the cost. So 100% is equals to 800. What we need is 120%. What we can do is we have to cross multiply this. Cross multiply this. So if we cross multiply, see 120 multiplied by 800, 120 multiplied by 800, 100 is coming down, and that will be the equation. Okay. So after that, we'll do the calculation. 960 rupees will be our answer. Will be our answer. Will be our answer. Okay. Right. Now go to the production Y. Production Y. Okay. Production Y. Same theory. Same theory. The cost is known. Cost is 900. Okay. So 90% is the cost here. We know the cost, which is 900. What we need is selling price. Yes. Selling price is 100%. That's what we need. Cross multiply this. Cross multiply this. 900 multiplied by 100. 900 multiplied by 100 divided by 90. That's what we need, which is equals 1000 rupees. Which is equals 1000 rupees. Okay. So yes, that will be the sub question number 2 answers. Okay. So selling price for the product X is 960. Selling price for the product Y is 1000. Okay. So simple as that. Okay. So this will be the answers for the 2022 A level. 2022 A level. Okay. So I will give you some time. Please note these answers. Okay, students, so that will be the our end of the session today. Okay, so I think today we have discussed the brief introduction about the overhead analysis sheet first. After that, we did the 2022 paper. Okay, so yes, there are few more papers to be done. I think in the next session, I am hoping to do the 2021 paper as well as 2023 paper. Okay, and one pay sheet question. Okay, so the next class we'll do the past papers. Okay, I think after that we there are two more units to finish. First one is CVP analysis, the break-even point analysis, and another one is the long-term investment decision making. Okay, so actually what I need is another three more sessions in order to finish your syllabus. Okay, so as I told earlier, even before the stipulated time, I am finishing your syllabus. Okay, so yes, so see you in the next session. Okay, thank you.